Okay, Lauren Paine, you are now, I have pushed the record and God willing, we're actually recording. So now you are and forever will be a Texas Titan. How does it feel?
I feel completely humbled, honored, and totally thrilled.
Well, I tell you what, so first of all, thanks for being on the show. And here's why I did this, kind of like we talked about yesterday. Watching you from afar, you are one of the most entrepreneurial, young professionals that I've witnessed in a while. You work your tail off, and not just in your work as a financial advisor, which that's your profession. We'll talk about that. But, outside of work, from health and fitness, I can tell you've got that down. Your family, you got that down. With community service and just things to make the community that you live in better, you've got that down. You do so many things beyond just going out, getting up and trying to make money and then calling it a day. And so
Who paid you to say all that?
No. No, here's the thing. So the whole reason for the Texas Titans podcast is to cover a whole array of guests that are doing things that I find impressive, because look, I don't think I'm anything terribly special. I think if I think that somebody is doing some things right and doing things well, that my audience will agree with me and will want to pick up on some of the tips and things that they're doing. And so you absolutely fall into that category. And so I just wanted to visit with you. And then whenever I saw that you have a campaign going on in Houston that we're going to talk about, when I saw that, I was like, okay, so there's so many reasons why I need to get Lauren on the podcast. Let's just do this. So that kind of tees up why you're here and why I asked you. So thanks so much for agreeing to do it.
Well, coming from you, somebody that I have also admired for the same reasons from afar, that means the absolute world. I'm totally blushing over here because, again, I promise everybody who's listening, I did not pay him to say that. He's just very, very kind. And, I'm just like everybody else, just trying to glorify God, get better every single day, and make sure I surround myself with iron sharpens iron kind of people so that I can continue to grow. So what you're seeing is totally a work in progress, totally imperfect, but I'm really blessed just to be able to have a conversation today and hope to be able to share some bits of encouragement.
Well, fantastic. Well, with that, let's get this started. I want to know about kind of how you grew up, where you grew up, and kind of what laid the groundwork, because again, I know just from watching. And so I want to confirm some of the things. I know you love you have just amazing parents. That comes through loud and clear just from watching your life. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and where do you think your drive came from? Because it is on point. It's so obvious from the first time I met you. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into kind of what took you to I know that you're going to want to talk about your alma mater. I mean, you guys are a cult, so we'll
guilty.
So just kind of start there, and then let's take it into the financial advisory, and then just go from there. Let's just have a conversation.
Okay, sounds great. So I was born, and I like to say raised and Aggie brainwashed in College Station, Texas. Yep. I am the oldest of four. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, I have been blessed beyond measure with the most remarkable parents in the world. I know I'm biased, but they really are truly the most amazing people that I know, and totally attribute who I am today to them. And I know that if they were sitting here having this conversation, they'd say, well, it's been God through us as catalysts in my life. So all glory to God again. But yeah, my parents are amazing people. So my dad, actually born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and his dad actually lost a business when he was 14 years old and gave him a lawnmower and said, son, I lost your entire the savings that I had put aside for your college education, and so if you want to be able to go to college, then here's this lawnmower. You can mow lawns and save money. So my dad put together a lawn mowing business, and it grew into a franchise, and he saved enough money to pay for his first year of education at A&M. but also was already thinking ahead of, I'm going to have to figure out how to pay for the other 3 years. And he was a pretty decent athlete, actually more than decent. So he worked really hard and he walked on to the Aggie football team and was given a scholarship to play football after his freshman year, after the money ran out from the lawn mowing. So God really provided there. And then, I mean, he went on to win the Aggie Heart Award, which I think speaks to, you know, I have his genes, so I got his passion and his drive. My dad does everything he does in life 110%, whether it is unloading the dishwasher, whether it was playing football, whether it's in a business meeting, whether it's talking to our garbage man or a CEO. He literally does everything to the best of his ability and makes every single person feel like the most important person in the world. So I definitely have gotten so much of my drive and my passion from my dad. And then same thing from my mom. They met and fell in love when she was in college. And so she did correspondence college. So that speaks to her persistence and her stick-with-itness of, they were traveling around when he was playing in the NFL. And she, of course, this was before internet and laptops. And so she would have Kansas State send her all of her assignments. She'd do them and then she'd mail them back. So she ended up finishing her college education on the road. And then she taught school for just a couple years before they started making their family. And so then she was a stay-at-home mom and a homemaker. But I still remember I commented one time when I was younger, I said, "Mom, you're so intense when you unload the dishwasher." And she said, "Well, I do everything 110%. And there's nothing else for moms to be competitive about. So I figured I might as well make household chores a competition with myself." And
that's amazing. So, love that.
You know, in different ways. I mean, that's just a sampling of my parents. I could go on and on. We could probably have a whole podcast about how amazing they are. But first and foremost, just their foundation, their core, the center, everything about their lives individually and then as people together is their faith in Jesus Christ. And I know that's exactly why they are who they are today, why our family is who we are today. And, you know, they've been through their fair share of adversity and trials with family and health challenges and whatnot. And so I really have gotten to see how those trials have made them better people and have just continued to refine them over time. And so I just can't say enough about them. They're my biggest heroes, my biggest fans, and definitely a lot of why I am who I am today. And also, I would say this of Bear sitting here, but also why I am so intense and just a very passionate person. So.
Okay, so all right, so I'm going to get selfish for a minute because as a parent with daughters that are, you know, Rylan, my oldest, is 20. She's a sophomore, about to be a junior at Alabama. So, you know, don't hold that against me as an Aggie, you know. I will say this. Here's a little sidebar. Okay, so my wife is literally like a surrogate member of the Manziel family. So
no kidding. I didn't know that.
I actually get to see in person Johnny Manziel's Heisman Trophy because it's right here in Tyler, Texas at his Gammy's house.
Right.
And so
cool.
So there's
that is super neat.
I do have some A&M kind of in my, you know, in my family on the peripheral through my wife. All right. So I kind of married into that. But Rylan is going to be a junior at Alabama. My youngest, Abby, is just finished her freshman year at the University of Colorado. And as a parent, trying to instill that, because see, I grew up very much like your father in that I put myself through undergrad. I had to work. I mean, I cut grass. When I was 13, I started mowing yards. My dad was very much the type, it's like, if you want something, you can work for it. And, you know, that was just how I grew up. And it sounds like I can relate to your father in that scenario. As parents, though, I have found it terribly challenging to have. You want to shield your children from some of the stuff that I bet your dad will look back and go, "Yeah, it was really hard, and I just don't want you to have to go through that. But I want you to benefit from the lessons of it." I guess that's the best way to put it. So, what are some examples? I mean, educate me as a daughter to a dad of daughters. You know, how did your parents instill in you the hard work ethic, because your dad's very successful. I know this about him, both, you know, as an athlete, as a professional, as in your chosen line of work. So what are some things that they did as a young age to teach you to have to, even though you may have grown up with more than him, but having to still work hard and have that passion, have that ambition? What are some lessons that directly impacted you growing up?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, being the oldest of four, you know, my dad jokes that when you go from 2 kids to 3, you go from man to man to zone coverage. And so ever since I can remember, you know, being, you know, a young girl, I was helping with chores around the house. So it was very much a team mentality of, you know, it takes all hands on deck for this family to run. And so I would say just the fact that they gave us tasks and household chores and just set that expectation. We did get an allowance, so got to learn, you know, the value of earning your money and truly experiencing the fruits of your labor. We were expected to make our beds every day. And if we didn't make our beds, then we would get docked on our allowance. And nobody wants to have $1 a day taken away from their allowance. And so what do? You make your bed every day. So I still make my bed every day. And so just having kind of those values instilled in me from literally the age of 2, 3, 4 years old really is a part of my core. And then I would say too, I think some of the other things that come to mind are, we still joke about this, but my dad never let me get a participation trophy for sports. You know, he was like, if you win a tournament or, you know, you actually win something special, then you can get a trophy. But my daughter's not going to get a participation trophy for showing up and doing what is expected, because kids shouldn't get an attaboy for, you know, just doing the bare minimum, right?
I love that. So real quick, I'm going to tell you, growing up, the girls would if they were standing here today, they would tell you that we always called that the Thanks for Coming Out Award. You know, anything other than first or second, we would say, yeah, it's the Thanks for Coming Out Award. We don't want it. It's you know, we don't say that. We don't collect the Thanks for Coming Out Awards in our house.
Exactly. The other thing that I am so thankful, so I have such fond memories of my dad coaching me in sports to a certain age, and then we decided we would rather him be the fan in the stands and let my coaches do the coaching. But we have really fond memories. And one of the most, I would say, refining experiences I had with him as a young girl is one of my first soccer teams. You know, whenever you're playing basically peewee soccer, everybody rotates all the different positions. And I was dreading playing goalie. I mean, nobody really wants to play goalie. It's the most stressful position. You know, you've got the team on your back, right? So, and I'm just I just put a lot of pressure on myself, and I have high expectations and didn't want to let the team down. And so the dreaded game came for me to play goalie. And sure enough, the other team scores a goal on me within the first few minutes of me being goalie. And I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, and I am just devastated. And I start crying, and I'm like, okay, get back out there, you know. Well, sure enough, they score again. And so now I'm getting really upset, and my dad's the coach, and I am just like, I don't want to play goalie. You know, my dad's like, just hang in there. You know, they score on me a third time. And this time I look at my dad and I say, I hate you. I hate you. And I'm like screaming at him. And I'm like, I can't believe you made me play goalie. Like, I'm just like blowing it up at my dad on the field.
Yeah.
And you know, there's two huge life takeaways that we still laugh about and we've shared many times. But one, he didn't just pull me out. He made me push through something that was very uncomfortable for me, right? And I think we live in a world where people get coddled and people just come to their rescue, and people are really shielded and insulated from having to experience any kind of pain or discomfort. Yep. And that's not the way to develop character or to develop grit or any of those things that actually are critical ingredients for being successful. And so as much as I wanted my dad to pull me out immediately and sub somebody else in, looking back, I'm really, really thankful that he didn't. And that he made me have to do just what everybody else did and play goalie for a half. And then the second takeaway that I think is such a valuable lesson for all of us is my dad did not stoop to my level. He not only didn't yell, "I hate you" back, but he kept cheering me on. And, you know, of course, I got a spanking after for disrespecting him. But in the moment, you know, it was very much, he was totally full of grace and class and kindness, and, you know, just continued to really stay by my side through, for me at the time, I think I was 7 years old, was the most devastating, horrible day of my life. And so I think it's just a huge lesson for all of us of, you know, even if someone, quote, yells, "they hate you" in some way or another, whether it is disrespecting you or doesn't become your client or whatever it is, you don't stoop down to their level. You don't, you know, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and cast a stone back, but you just continue to be kind and have grace. And what I call one of my missions and kind of my mottos in life is have a backbone of steel and a heart of gold. And so, you know, you just stand your ground and continue to love them. So
I think that is fantastic. And by the way, I didn't know that we share this in common, but Rylan, my oldest, I was mentioning earlier, she was a goalkeeper.
Really?
First team All-State. And
well,
so,
she is a much better human and athlete than I am, because I couldn't hang for more than one half.
let me tell you, I get it. There is the only thing harder than being the parent of a goalkeeper is to actually have to be the goalkeeper. And so I feel your dad's pain. I feel your
so
pain.
You get it.
So yeah, and actually, I wish that Rylan, she talked about continuing on at Alabama, but she was just like, she did not want to do it anymore. But I hated that. But it's a lot of pressure, and that is really cool. And it does speak volumes for your dad, because to be able to delineate my daughter versus the player that I have to encourage right now, you know, and to walk that line, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so now you go to A&M, you keep with the family tradition, and what I want to know is, whenever you come out of school now, did you know immediately, because obviously with your dad, you had the groundwork as far as what being a financial advisor was all about and that sort of thing. And to the listener, I want you to know something, because a lot of people don't know this, Lauren, that you are an entrepreneur as a financial advisor. You come out and you eat what you kill. I mean, you've got an infrastructure built around you, a brand built around you, but ultimately you have to create your own destiny. So, and it's not enough, of what I've seen for sure, it's not enough to just have that great example that you've seen your whole life. You have to actually go execute on your own. So tell me about, and also speak to, like I mentioned yesterday when we talked about in preparation for this, I visit with and mentor a lot of undergrads that are in their junior, senior year, and I'm always trying to help them understand the value of networking, hard work, never taking for granted a connection, and don't just leverage it all, you know, truly develop a relationship, because, you know, a mutual friend that you and I have, and John Atkins, is somebody that I met over 20 years ago now. And John has been, in some form or fashion, a part of my career that has been up, down, it's zigged, it's zagged, it's made sense, it's made no sense. And John has been a mentor and a voice of reason and wisdom to me all through the years. So kind of talk to me about how you set out with your own personal business plan for road mapping your career and what you've done. Because I would say, you know, I mean, look, you're, you know, given where you are, you know, you're significantly younger than I am, but you're really right. You're in that good ramp up part of your career, which is so vital. How did you start off managing that? What are you doing now? And what are some things that you would tell those professionals just coming out of school to the point to where you are? If I had to do all over again, I would absolutely, without question, do this every single time.
Yeah, all great questions. So the start of my career was anything but perfect. It was completely turbulent. I had frankly zero direction, right? I graduated as a communication and English major from A&M. Somebody told me growing up, if you can communicate effectively, you'll have the keys to anything and everything in life, regardless of your industry. And I thought, well, I'm really passionate about communicating. I love public speaking. I love writing. I love reading. So I may as well go to school to get really good at that, and I'll figure out the rest after that. So that was the approach that I took. But, it's a blessing and a curse when you have coursework and curriculum that are so broad. And so I really graduated with zero direction for what I wanted to do in life. And, I went to the career fair, but, I just knew I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to use my gifts and talents to glorify God and help people. But other than that, zero clue. So I jumped into a career actually doing technology consulting with a firm in the Woodlands, Texas. Technology consulting was kind of a popular career path to take right out of college whenever I graduated. So I thought, sounds like a decent, idea for me. So I'll do it. All my friends are doing it, peer pressure, right? And so I jumped in with this firm, and in short, that entire year felt like me playing goalie when I was younger. It was a very, very challenging experience, to say the least. And, I wouldn't change it though for the world, because it grew me up, it sharpened me, it humbled me. I really brought to a head my strengths, and it really also brought to a head my weaknesses. It really helped define and kind of sift out what I'm really passionate about, what I'm not passionate about. So, I'll never forget, I was working 80 hours a week that entire year. So it was not only work that wasn't a good fit for my skill set, but it was also a lot of it. And it was a challenging environment. So I had some really valuable takeaways. And one of those was I had a really great mentor at that company. And I remember meeting with him probably about 6 or 7 months in. And he said, what's the vision for your career? And I said, I think I really come alive and I thrive when I am client facing, when I am interacting with the clients, I'm making presentations, I'm providing solutions. That's when I think I'm really shining, when I'm really contributing best to the team. And I said, so when can I start bringing on new clients for us? Like, I want to get out there. And that was when I kind of first started realizing my passion for transferring enthusiasm to people in my network about solutions and, making their life or their business better. Right. And he said, well, you're probably going to have to wait, it'll probably be 10 or 15 years so you can start doing that here. And I thought, ruh-roh, I am not waiting that long, And so that was when my wheels first started turning of, man, I don't want to be the stereotypical millennial that just jumps from job to job and whatever. But at the same time, I don't want to stay at a company and in a career path that really isn't maximizing my skill set and my full potential. And so it was then that I started seeking out the wise advice and counsel of mentors and just people in my network. And I got the advice to start a career journal and just to start, jotting down, okay, when something is energizing, when something I feel like I had a win, write out the positive things. But then when something is really draining or I don't feel like I thrive very well doing that, take note of that as well. So I started almost making a T-chart of like strengths and energizers and then weaknesses and energy drains, And I also started telling my network, hey, I'm looking for a job. And that was for those of you who are really driven and, performance and achievement is really important. And for me, failure is my biggest fear. And it's also it feels like the end all be all. And that's something I'm really growing in and to change my perspective, which I want to share about. But, it's all like a failure, right? Man, my first job, it's already crashing and burning. I failed. I can't believe it, all of those things. But I just continued to feel the confirmation that this just wasn't the right fit for me long term. And then I had one of my great guy friends from A&M, Jacob Robinson. He actually served as student body president at A&M when I was a freshman, he was a senior, and I worked on his campaign. And he reached out and just said, hey, I'm at Northwestern Mutual as an advisor, and I think, you'd really enjoy the company and the industry, and, you should interview and check it out. And then I kind of thought, wow, my dad has always told me that he thought I would, do well in this industry, but I had to, our parents don't know anything as we think as we're growing up. And so I wanted to make my own way and really kind of cut my teeth on my own ideas and passions first. And, it didn't work out. And so it's funny because I called him and I said, it's crazy, but you've always told me this my whole life. And whatever. He said, you should totally go for it. I've always told you, I think this would be an amazing fit for you. So long story short, I think staying true to yourself, like I went back to that journal I'd been keeping, and I went into my first interview with Northwestern Mutual and said, hey, this is who I am, right? I don't thrive when I'm micromanaged. I don't like working in Excel. I don't like being told, I have a certain time that I have to maintain for lunch. If I'm in a conversation and I want to be 10 minutes late back from lunch, then that should be okay. So there were kind of all of these criteria of this is a no-go for me. This is about who I am. And if you want the best Lauren Paine, then it's got to be in this list of these things that are within my strengths, my values, my expectations. And, I was only 23 years old. So I felt a little bit like, man, am I too young to be expecting, X, Y, Z? And hindsight 2020, I'm still glad that I went into that conversation like that, because they said, the opportunity we have for you is the exact perfect fit. I mean, you can be in front of the computer maybe 10% of your day doing emails, but the rest of the time you're expected to be in front of people. And I was like, really? Like, I'm just like so excited. I mean, it's like Christmas morning. I'm like, I cannot believe that there's job opportunities out there that I can actually, use my strengths and passions and be who God created me to be. And so long story short, just totally fell in love with the company culture, the values, the mission statement, the whole industry of helping people achieve their personal, professional, financial goals and getting to be entrepreneurial, but with the support of a Fortune 50 company. It was just such a godsend. And I'm still have to pinch myself to this day, because I had that perspective of tasting something that was so not the right fit in literally every way. And so I wouldn't change that experience, because it really did sift everything out and helped me to really have a lot of conviction and clarity around who I am, what I bring to the table, and what my values are, and to really then run hard in that.
That is so awesome. Okay, and so it's funny because basically everything you just unpacked is why I wanted you on the podcast. You didn't know that, because you covered so many things, Lauren, that I preach to my daughters, that I preach to these undergrads that I was mentioning earlier. And by the way, you figured something out that it took me probably a good 20 years into my career to figure out, which is putting down that list, if you will, of, okay, what do I want to do every day? And a lot of people don't even realize, like you said, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So many people listening to this are thinking, I can't just say what I want to be when I grow up, when I'm grown up, and how, and all the way down to the detail of what I want if I want my lunch to go 10 minutes longer than it should, that's something that is important, because what the listener, a lot of them don't realize is that asking for that 10 minutes of margin exemplifies a lot more than 10 minutes longer in a conversation. It represents freedom. It represents autonomy. It represents the ability to be creative. And like you said, understanding yourself, to take the time to be introspective enough, not to just navel gaze and figure out, who am I, but to figure out, how can I best, I always describe it like this when I'm talking to people. When you figure out what your gifts and talents are and what your loves and what your passions are, and you match those with a vocation, it is like taking a plug to a socket. That's where the electricity and the energy will flow.
Absolutely.
And so, and it's a lot of the reason why I started this podcast. As you know, you and I met whenever I was running for office. I figured out that
at your campaign event.
That's right. And I figured out during that time that was not what I wanted to do with my life. But what I did love, much like yourself, I loved the communication aspect. I love inspiring people. I love hearing their stories. So I took pieces of that, and one of those things from that journey was I'm gonna start a podcast. I remember telling Abby, my youngest, I said, I want to spend my time speaking and writing. And I said, but to be a professional speaker, especially when you're my age, that's kind of like just saying you want to join the circus, But so I get it. And then I love the journaling aspect. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get up and walk away from the computer for a minute. You'll love this. Because to the listener, sorry for that little delay, but you know what? This is real time, baby. So talking about journaling, this is how my morning starts every day.
So awesome.
I've got 5 journals every single morning.
That is so cool.
One to Abby, one to Rylan, my personal journal, my gratitude journal, and this one I just started about, I guess it's been over the past year, my idea journal. So
I love that.
It's awesome. So James Altucher, who has a great podcast and author, he wrote a book called Choose Yourself, which really covers a lot of what you just touched on. It tells people how in this new economy, there are so many different ways to monetize or turn into a career the things you're actually good at and passionate about.
Right.
And so he describes in that book how he makes his brain sweat every day. And part of the way he does,
I love that word picture. That analogy is so good.
Yeah, and part of the way he does that is he writes down 10 ideas every single day. Now, much like James, a lot of the ideas in my idea journal, they probably are terrible. But you got to believe that over 3,000 ideas a year, there's 1 or 2 that I can execute on, and for me personally, I actually have. And it's just getting your mind into that. So, when you mention the journal, and that is such a cool idea as far as to the listener. Again, if I don't care what stage of your career are, to take the time to write down those things in real time. That's what I loved about what you were talking about, the real time capturing, this is what I'm feeling while I do this, and therefore I need to eliminate that, or this is what I'm feeling when I do this. Like, how do we increase that?
Right. Well, and to that point, to go back to how my experience playing goalie growing up, I think this is a really important message, and I'm very much saying this as I'm still learning it. So give me grace when I say this, but I think like my mentor at my first job, I am really thankful for him. We still have a relationship today, and he always told me, he said, you need to be proficient at essentially everything, but only excellent at your strengths. And I think to go back to the soccer analogy, it's like, okay, I think everybody does need to know what it's like to play goalie, to play every position, but you shouldn't be stuck playing goalie for your whole career if that's not your skill set. And I think that's where there is a major disconnect in the workplace, and why I think millennials get such a bad rap. And, I think that, again, it's a fine line. I don't think that people should be totally coddled and protected from ever having to play goalie, so to speak, or doing, those tasks that are just, a pain, right? I think everybody needs to know that experience and pour their blood, sweat, and tears into something that's hard and uncomfortable, and it's not just super fun. But again, nobody needs to be stuck doing that for years on end in their career. But sadly, there are so many people who maybe their parents told them they needed to do a certain, job, or maybe they just think that they need to do this certain job to be successful or whatever. And so they're not staying true to themselves. They're trying to stay true to other people. And at the end of the day, that's not what's glorifying to God. And that's actually not what's best for other people if you're not being true to yourself and really bringing your full self to the table every single day. And so I think that's something that we as a culture need to continue to have open conversation around, and create freedom and space for people to actually discover that, and then to run hard in that lane that's really true to their unique wiring and gifting and skill set and passions.
I cannot agree more. And that's one of those things that it took me a while to figure out is like, for instance, whenever I went to business school, you know, I thought that I was supposed to be really, really good at doing corporate finance. You know, when it comes to doing valuation on a deal, I thought, because I'm terrible at any type of quantitative analysis. I'm just awful at it because it makes my eyes glaze over. I just don't like it. But what I'm really good at is if I understand a deal, I can get you excited about a deal. If I believe in it. So therefore, it took me actually going through business school, spending a ton of money at SMU to do that, to realize, wait a minute, I can still figure deals out and do deals without having to do the quantitative approach. And instead of, this is what I think a lot of people do. They find those things that are weaknesses and they spend an inordinate amount of time trying to correct those weaknesses instead of just saying, I'm not good at that. And then I think people feel guilty at saying this, I don't like doing that. And I'm not going to do that. I mean, there's enough instances in life where we have to do things we don't want to do just because it's the responsible thing to do. But in those instances where you actually can say, I don't like doing that, so therefore I don't want to do that anymore, like what you realized, and then go find out, but I do love doing this, well, go do more of that thing. I think that is a treasure. When you figure that out, man, that is a gold mine. So
absolutely.
Well done. I'm so glad you brought those points up.
Well,
that is
very blessed.
That's one of those points that I want to bring out. So now, whenever you do go to this new career that is matching up with your gifts and strengths, one of the coolest things, I want you to talk about anything you did to start out with your, you know, in real estate, when I'm in my brokerages, I always have my realtors get out there and create your platinum book of business, your sphere of influence, understand who your 25 people are that are going to recommend you, they're going to help you, that no matter what, they're going to take a call. But talk to me about some of the actual things that you did to start to build your own personal business. And then we've got to make sure we talk about your networking breakfast for a lot of reasons, because I think it's not only just a smart thing to do for any professional, but the attitude behind it and kind of the genesis of why you started it, I think is just awesome. So kind of take us through you basically starting, and look, so you're with a huge, you know, Fortune 50 company, but essentially you started Lauren Paine Inc. So take us.
That's a great way to say it. Well, I can actually answer the breakfast question with that, because the breakfast is one of the things that I did to build my business. So I started out with Northwestern Mutual as actually director of selection was my official title. So it was really doing business development and talent acquisition. So attracting men and women to become financial advisors. So I was technically, you know, a salaried plus bonus commission person with the company. But I want to just attribute, I mean, of course, all the kudos in the world to my parents for the way that they raised me and instilled just phenomenal work ethic and drive and stick-with-itness and grit growing up. But then take it to Northwestern Mutual, it's, you know, one of the only 5 AAA rated companies in the country. And I will say just the most phenomenal training ever. I mean, it's incredible. So they literally gave me a textbook. I mean, you know, any business, it's an art and a science, right? It's heart and it's numbers, right? So there's those 2 components that they have to both be functioning on full cylinders for you to be really successful. So I kind of brought this raw passion and heart and work ethic, but then I feel like Northwestern Mutual was able to kind of help me know how to refine and channel that in a productive way. And so I do attribute so much of that and you know, my mentors, and I mean, there's too many for me to even mention on this podcast, but at Northwestern Mutual, I just am so grateful for all of them for every bit of investment that they have made in me to really help me be successful. But then beyond that, so at the end of the day, you got to go out and just do it in sales, right? I mean, they can give you, you know, the textbook and the, you know, the manual, so to speak, for how to be successful, but it means nothing unless you execute on it. And so my biggest challenge was just, you know, being 23 years old and, you know, really needing to establish a network. I'm not from Houston. You know, there are Aggies here, but I really didn't have many super close personal relationships when I started my business. And, you know, yeah, so I saw that as an exciting opportunity, not a bottleneck or this debilitating challenge. And so I literally, a big part of me building my business was I would Google, you know, networking events, you know, where are the best place to meet real estate professionals, energy professionals, banking professionals, finance professionals. And I would just Google these events every single Sunday afternoon, and I would research them, and then I would RSVP to the ones that I thought, you know, looked most productive and quality. And then I put them on my calendar, and I would just show up and just kind of, you know, walk up and meet people, right? And I definitely found some success, right? Just kind of getting out there. I mean, my dad being a football guy, he was like, you're not going to learn nearly as much just standing on the sideline watching as you are just going to getting out there and hitting somebody. So kind of the same concept of just get out there and hit somebody and just go make it happen and learn by trial and error and fail forward, you know? But I was a little bit discouraged at, I would say, the lack of substance and depth of the conversations I was having there. I was quickly finding that many people there had other agendas that were more personal, of whether it was dating or friendships and just partying and having fun. And I just continued to leave really discouraged, thinking, gosh, I feel like that was just a waste of my time. I literally only met one quality person that I actually think we might do business together. And I'm just exhausted from empty conversation. And I spent, you know, a couple of years just kind of wallowing that of, oh, golly, I can't find a quality group and whatever. And then I just remembered, you know, kind of the age-old saying, be the change that you want to see. And so I literally prayed about it for about 6 months, and I met with the mentors and some of my closer friends and colleagues and some of my clients, and just said, hey, what if we start our own group? You know, I'm really hungry for a place where we can have really meaningful conversation. We can sharpen each other personally, professionally, you know, in our faith, in our giving back, in our philanthropy, really help each other to become amazing leaders in our community and to really give back in a big way and use our careers and that platform to help other people. You know, that was my vision. And so, you know, I love the George S. Patton quote, it's better to execute a violent, I'm totally butchering it, a violently, what is it? An imperfect plan executed today is far better than a perfect plan executed a week from now. Is that it?
Yep. Close enough.
Totally botched it, but you get the drift. So I'm such a perfectionist, and I was spending 6 months trying to put together this perfect breakfast. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to freaking throw it on the calendar, and we're just going to grow it as it happens. You know, one of my colleagues, he says, you know, build the plane while you fly it, you know? So I just kind of thought, okay, let's just do this thing. So I hosted the first breakfast in January of 2017, and there were 3 of us, and I just kind of shared my vision, and they all, to my surprise, but now it's actually not a surprise because you realize the way God made human beings, and we're wired for meaningful connection with people. So everybody wants a place to connect like this. And so anyways, so I started breakfast 7 a.m. I thought, all right, we cannot have what I want at a happy hour. Just no can do. There's a time and place for happy hours, but that is not the place for what I'm trying to create. And so the easy fix was to make it breakfast. And then the other kind of value that was important to me is that we really only have really driven go-getter type people. Well, the quick way to weed out lazy people is make the breakfast at 7 a.m. and you'll see really quickly who shows up for 7 a.m. and who doesn't. And there you go. That's the crowd that you want. Okay. So all that to say, and it was really cool. I was praying about the name of the breakfast, and God put Joshua 1 on my heart. And it's where, you know, he's saying, arise, raise, you know, the next generation. And so kind of thinking about this group cultivating next generation leaders, I named the group the Arise Breakfast, or Arise. And so that was the inspiration for the name. But I could go on, but God has just really blessed the breakfast to where now we have about 30 people that come every single month. And I have a leadership team in place, super blessed to have people around me who believe in the breakfast just as much, if not more than I do now. And so that's it's very humbling. And again, we're continuing to grow and really sharpen the group and our mission and our impact and what all that looks like. But we really have cultivated an amazing group of professionals, mostly in our 30s and 40s, who, are really driven, hard workers, values-based, faith people who want to give back in a huge way and make an amazing impact in our city and beyond. So
I love that so much. And, it reminds me of whenever I was getting ready to start this podcast, I was just, wringing my hands. I was going through all this consternation about, when to get it right and how I have to learn how to do this and do that. And one of my friends, Raz Schaefer, who I've given credit to before on this podcast, said, look, man, if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you'll never start it. Just start and figure it out as you go. And I can't, that's the same thing. Every writer will tell you, hey, don't wait till the book is already ready in your head. Just sit and start hacking on the computer, start writing. And, a lot of it, I think, ties back to, and I just did a message on this for a men's group I'm a part of, but, it's kind of that whole faith without works is dead. If you just sit around and you have the faith that you can do this. It's kind of like on Seinfeld a long time ago, whenever Kramer was going to build these levels all throughout his house. He was going to build levels and levels. And Jerry said, no, you're not. And he said, no, he said, I'm going to do it. And they made a bet. And then eventually he decided, well, no, I'm not going to build the levels. And Jerry's like, well, what a surprise. He goes, but I could. He goes, yeah, but the bet was that you would actually do it. He said, no, the bet's off because I didn't do it. Point being, we can do a lot of things, but until you actually get out and step out in faith and execute, it's never going to happen, and it's for naught. And so the fact that there's two things there: one, that you would step out and just go ahead, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you get the ball rolling, go ahead and push forward. But secondly, I love the fact that what you wanted, and this is the message for this listener, please lean in. If you maybe you even pull off the road, I don't care. I'm about to say something extremely profound, which doesn't happen very often. If something that you want does not exist, then create it. I mean, it's that simple. If the workplace that you want,
sure.
You just said it, and yet, like we talked about the Gandhi quote that you mentioned, be the change you want to see. You know what? Look, folks, if you have more power and more ability to create a roadmap and a design and a blueprint for the life you want to live than you probably realize. If it's within the confines of the law, if it still allows you to meet your familial responsibilities and it doesn't hurt anybody, then why aren't you doing it? And so the fact that I love that, the big takeaway for me on that, Lauren, and why I got so excited about it because I didn't know that's how you started the networking breakfast. I knew you had it. I see it on social media, but I love the fact that what you wanted didn't exist, so you built it. That's awesome, and that says so much about you. And to the listener, that's the book that I mentioned, Choose Yourself by James Altucher, that I mentioned all the time. My book, Push Play, Take Life Off Pause, very much deals with whenever I decided to create the blueprint roadmap for my life. When I stepped out of the matrix and started realizing, wait a minute, I have a lot more power than I realized to make the changes. Then I read James's book. I was like, man, that's the book I really wanted to write. I wish I was that good, because that's the whole point, is we have more power to do those things. Well, so now you've kind of created this mantra of, if you don't see what you like, I don't know where that sound's coming from. It's probably from my computer that's messing up. I don't know if can you hear that?
I can't hear it now.
Okay, good. Maybe it won't show up on the recording. I'm hearing some kind of feedback. It's coming from my end, I think. But nevertheless, if something you want doesn't exist, go create it. But secondly, talk to me about the campaign you're involved in, because there's more to life than just work, and there's passions that you see that you can change outside of work. So Talk to us about the campaign. I want to know how we can help. I want to know how this audience can help if that's possible. More importantly, the cause that you're serving, I think, is huge. So talk to us a little bit about that, Lauren.
Yes, I'm super thrilled to do that. So just a little background, I am running for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society Woman of the Year in Houston this year. I'm super honored, humbled, and thrilled to get to do it. A little background on it. So my first interaction with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society was back in 2016. I was asked to be a guest at the grand finale gala. Really had never heard of the Leukemia Lymphoma Society and was excited to learn, right? So I went that evening and had the opportunity to hear a very remarkable woman speak. She won Woman of the Year runner-up that year and shared her story. So she got diagnosed with lymphoma when she was 19 years old as a sophomore at A&M. Within the same time frame, her dad got diagnosed with prostate cancer, her mom with breast cancer. Long story short, mom lost her battle. She and her dad lived. Fast forward, praise God, by his grace, she's 14 years cancer-free today. And so I heard her share her story and was so moved and just thought, I have got to meet this woman. I want to know her. I want to hear more, want to know how I can help. So I went up to her after she spoke and introduced myself, and we became really good friends, started doing life together. She and her husband then became my client, so I'm their financial advisor. And then, fast forward to this past December, she calls me and she says, hey, I've got something exciting to share. And I had no idea what she was going to share. I thought it was, we're pregnant with our second kid, or I had no idea. So she plans a meeting, and there's some people from the LLS board there as well. And they say, we're thrilled to nominate you to run for Woman of the Year. And so I took a couple weeks to think about it and pray about it, because it is a substantial feat to take on. So I just wanted to make sure that this was the right fit for me and this was what God had for me. And so, I kind of thought about, okay, well, I don't have anyone in my family with blood cancer. I've never had blood cancer. Danielle is really my only connection. So, am I the right person? And, and frankly, like probably most of us can relate, I started doing some negative self-talk of, I'm too young to do this. I'm not established enough to do this. This isn't the right time. Let me wait a few, whatever. And I just felt like God continued to affirm, this is what I have for you, that this is a way that you can live out, my will for your life. And so I kind of thought about it, and my favorite parable in the Bible is in Matthew 25. It's the parable of the talents. And, I really feel like God has given us, each one of us, a specific set of gifts and talents. Has given each of us a life, health, energy, a network, whatever it is, relationships, but he's given us, our lot in life. And I really believe someday he's going to hold us accountable and say, what did you do with what I entrusted you with? Right. And so, and my life's mission statement is to literally give everything I've got to glorify God and help people. It's pretty simple, And so when I kind of thought about this campaign, I thought this totally is in alignment with my life's mission statement, and it's the way I can continue to live that out. And so, and then it was such a God thing, because right when I was kind of in that critical window of deciding if I was going to accept the nomination, I heard of 5 different people in my network who had just gotten diagnosed with blood cancer. And I thought, wow, I did not realize how many people blood cancer affects, what an ugly battle it is. And I want to give my all for these people who are literally fighting for their lives. And for whatever reason, I didn't do anything to deserve to not have cancer or to have good health. But what I can do with that blessing is use it to help other people. And so I called and accepted, but that was before our world turned upside down. And so the campaign, we didn't know if we were going to cancel it. We didn't know. We postponed it a couple times. So just really challenging, but ended up kicking off the campaign on May 7th. And the deadline, the finish line is July 17th. So what it is there are 10 women and 10 men who run, and it's a 10-week fundraising competition. So each one of us are given 10 weeks to raise as much money as we possibly can. And the respective man and woman who raise the most money are dubbed Man and Woman of the Year. And so my heartbeat with this is, you know, we've had people drop who decided not to run anymore because of the economic, crisis, because of COVID. And again, brought it to God again. And I just felt like he kept saying, you know, these people actually need our help more than ever because they're fighting the battles of not only cancer, but also COVID as well. And so have continued to remain super passionate about it. And really, again, I feel like if a lot of us give a little, we're going to make a huge impact. I love the Nelson Mandela quote of, you know, our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate, but our greatest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. And I truly don't think that there could be a better quote to embody this campaign because it is a huge feat. I want to raise $500,000. I feel like God put that goal on my heart. I actually reread The Circle Maker right before this campaign, and it was kind of about how anything less than outrageous dreams are offensive to God, and how, you know, he gets all the more glory when we do pray big prayers and we dream big dreams and we work like it's up to us and pray like it's up to him. You know, that's when he is most glorified. And so I have a list of, you know, 20 reasons why I shouldn't do this campaign, or why I won't win, or why I couldn't even raise $10,000, you know. But again, he just said, keep going, put one foot in front of the other, day by day, trust me for your daily bread, and I will do immeasurably more than you could ask or imagine. And so I'm just giving this my all. I'm leaving it all out on the field and doing my best to seriously fight blood cancer, make a huge impact. But I'm also super competitive, so I want to freaking win this campaign.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I'd never heard, I love that. Let me make sure I got it right. Work like it's up to us, but pray like it's up to him. Did I get it right?
Mm-hmm. Mark Batterson.
That is solid. I love that. Okay. So how can this audience help out? Do you have a landing page?
Yes.
Right?
Okay. So we have 5 weeks left. Literally yesterday was a halfway point. Yep. So here's the ways you can help. Number one, you can give. So go to lauren4lls.org. Okay. So LAUREN, spell out the word for FORLLS.org. And literally just click the donate button, and I would challenge you to give as much as you're able. I want to just give a quick credibility note about LLS. So they're among the nonprofits in the United States with the highest financial integrity. So less than 20 cents per dollar given goes to pay their expenses, and the rest goes directly to the care and the research of people fighting blood cancer. So impeccable organization, definitely a phenomenal steward of our funds. And that was another one of the reasons why I felt so passionate, and still do, about raising money and entrusting LLS to handle it in the best way possible. So give, it's a completely tax deductible gift. And if you check out my page, my YouTube channel, I go through every level from $25 all the way up to $100,000 of the direct power of your donation. So I'm not kidding when I say no donation is too small. Even if you can give $5, $10, $25, that helps pay for parking. That helps pay for, you know, patient education on how to fight blood cancer, right? So you'd rather give a little than give nothing. And I promise you, it'll be so rewarding, and you're actually going to get more by giving than you are to even the person that's receiving. So give. I would say to spread the word. Please go on my social media, my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube channel, and I would be super honored if you would share and tell my story and say, hey, this girl is trying to make an impact in an unprecedented time, and I would love for you to support her like I am. You know, I would just really appreciate, or text 5 or 10 people. I really find that giving during this time of stress and trials and challenge is actually the best medicine, and it's one of the most powerful ways to cultivate good mental health, right? Like giving is so good for us. And so I've actually found that every person I have asked has found it to be a very healing and encouraging opportunity to get to be a part of something bigger than themselves, something that's helping people in a huge way. And that's really making a powerful difference. And so I feel like if a lot of us give a little, it's going to make a big impact. So I would say give and then spread the word. And then the other is just, if you are a business owner, we have opportunities for corporate sponsorships. And so I'd love to partner with you on a corporate level if you have capacity to do that. And then we also are having our grand finale gala virtually on July 17th. So contact me if you want more details to tune in, but also we're having an auction, and any of the auction items that are donated on my behalf, whatever amount of money those go for, that trees up to my grand total. So if you donate, if you have a second home and you donate a weekend at your second home and that goes for $10,000, well, that $10,000 trees up under my total. And so auction items are super helpful too.
Okay.
So other than that, yeah, and go to my my Instagram and my Facebook. I have a weekly newsletter I send out that shares stories of people in my network that are fighting. I share facts. I share updates on the campaign. We're doing a fitness challenge right now. Everybody, you give $5 per day that you work out and post a picture. We're doing, one of my favorite boutiques is giving back 15% of every purchase made with my code. So there's so many different ways to get involved. So I would say one of the best ways is probably just connect with me personally so we can have a conversation about your heartbeat, your passion, what our needs are, and hopefully we can align those.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And what I'll do is I'll make sure to have all of that in the show notes to make sure that, it's really easy for people to get to your website and get to your social media to help you out. And so, and kudos to you, as you know, I'm a big believer in, doing things beyond yourself, and you're crushing it in that regard, Lauren. So anything that the Texas Titans audience can do to help with that, we certainly want to do. So I would encourage everybody listening, please help out with this incredibly worthy cause. Okay.
Thank you so much. That means the world.
Heck yeah. All right. So before we wrap up, I've got a little bit of a lightning round for you. And
okay.
I'm so excited because I know you're going to crush this. I know I'm going to learn some really cool stuff, which I am like I'm a little bit obsessed with self-education and self-improvement. So, all right. So first of all, right now, are you reading anything? What is it? And tell us if we should add it to our reading list. Books, magazines, great article, whatever you might be looking at.
Yes. I'm a little ADD, so I have like 5 books going at once. So I'll just share my favorite 2. In addition to the Bible, I am reading Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. I highly recommend everybody read it, watch it.
Okay.
And then I'm also actually rereading Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Highly recommend anything by Brene Brown.
Yeah, one of my, I've got certain people that are like Tim Ferriss, like we talked about yesterday. Oprah is his big get. He wants to get Oprah on his podcast. I would love to have Brene Brown. I mean, if ever there's a Texas Titan,
she is the best.
Yeah. So, okay. Very good.
Oh, and Wall Street Journal for my news.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So, all right. Then of all the books you've read, and look, I say top 3, but I don't care if it's 4 or 5, what are some books that have shaped you both personally, career, I don't care, whatever the case may be. Give us some reads that we should put in our library.
Oh my goodness.
And it could be the ones you've mentioned. I mean, you mentioned some great ones because it sounds like Daring Greatly, which is one you've already had in your library.
Yeah, so Daring Greatly for sure. I would say Go Giver, the book The Go Giver.
Love that. Okay.
By Bob Berg.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of one of the inspirations for this campaign. It's the concept of being a go-getter and a big giver. So merging those concepts of just being a big giver.
Okay.
So Go Giver, I would say The One Thing is really powerful.
Okay.
The Case for Christ.
Excellent. And also and I'll say this, any of the listeners that are that are not believers. Case for Christ, not that not as a point to try to proselytize you or through the Texas Titans podcast, but a very, very solid scientific account
Yes.
of literally the Case for Christ. And so, I always give that. That's one of my favorite books. Josh McDowell's More Than a Carpenter and A Case for Christ are two excellent reads on essentially two guys that set out to prove that the non-existence of Christ and came to believe that, oh, wow, okay, maybe I was wrong. So great intellectual read. So I love that. Okay?
Also, one of my favorite classics was The Great Gatsby.
Oh,
I really,
yeah.
Being an English major, I loved The Great Gatsby. I could go on, but that's probably.
I used to read Gatsby once. I used to read Wuthering Heights and The Great Gatsby every year, at least.
Yeah.
Wuthering
I've read it multiple times. Yeah.
I love it. And I can't help but like Jimlyn and I, we love New York. I mean, that's like our
I've seen y'all's pictures from your adventures there.
That's our happy place, and I can't help but every time I'm at the plaza or near it, I think of Scott Fitzgerald, because that's where he did so much writing. He hung out at the plaza, and New York was so much a part of who he was. But anyway, okay, awesome. Gatsby, I'm with you on that. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is one that, unless you got another book, I want to move to the next one because I really want to get to this.
Yeah, no, great.
You good?
I mean, I could go on, but those are probably the top ones that come to mind if it's a lightning round. So.
All right. So let's just talk about, so I'm going to show you, I have you can see it, that little deal right there, that's my daily habits board, okay? So I have, and it has stuff like, read the Bible, journal, just read in general, close the 3 rings on my Apple Watch. It has these different things that I want to achieve every single day, and I score them at the end of the day. I'm a big believer in building habits, breaking bad ones. What are some of your habits that you've developed that as long as the sun comes up, you're going to execute these habits daily to ensure physical fitness, nutrition, mental wellness, whatever the case may be? What are some habits that you have, daily habits that you execute on every single day?
Yeah. Well, I am such a firm believer in this. Just like you said, this is absolutely critical. You cannot pour out unless you are refilling your cup every day. So, just think about that. An empty glass cannot pour out anything. So you're just like an empty glass, and you've got to make sure you're refilling your cup every day. I have learned this a really hard way. I used to be a total yes girl, literally never say no to anything. And I would run myself into the ground. Like, it was horrible. And I kind of looked up and I was like, I don't have any time to barely think. I was just running on fumes all the time. And I had kind of just a breakdown of, oh my gosh, this is horrible. So I actually had to go to my doctor, and I just said, like, I'm having all these health issues, whatever. And he was like, yeah, if you try to run like this the rest of your life, you're going to kill yourself, Yeah. So yes, it's very real to all the listeners. Please take care of yourself first. Like, self-care is so important. And I love that it's such a huge topic of discussion in our world today because it's so critical. So some of the things recently, I'll just kind of say in general, and then I actually have like my win the day list on my phone. But I mean, religious about getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. I think that is so important. Religious about drinking plenty of water every single day. I am so religious about moving in some way every day. So there's 2 or 3 days a week that I'll just go for a walk. But even just moving is so important for your mental health, for your physical health, eating a healthy diet. I mean, getting your greens, taking your vitamins. I mean, those are just so critical. Mental health, I make sure I journal at least a page every day, and I see a counselor once a week for an hour a week. I could not recommend counseling enough. I think it is so important. Ben Stewart, who started Breakaway Ministry, he ran Breakaway Ministries at A&M, and now he's the pastor at Passion City Church in DC. He always would say that, counselors aren't for sick people. They're for healthy people to stay healthy. You know, I mean, they can help sick people, but you're not sick or weird if you go to a counselor. You're actually smart and healthy. So go seeing a counselor. And then I would say, you know, just my faith, right? I mean, engaging with God in some way every day. I'm totally not legalistic. That could be through singing worship songs or through going for a prayer walk or reading my Bible or, you know, whatever. I don't think it has to look a certain way, but just engaging with God every day is so important. And then I won't go through all of these, but I do. So I actually have a win the day, I don't know if you can see that, but a win the day list on my phone of all the tasks that I need to get done. And I mean, I have take my vitamins, floss, you know, I mean, I have some really basic things on there, but I love the feeling of checking something off of the list. And so these are daily reminders that pop up on my phone every day.
Love it.
And I love the feeling. It's so satisfying to just check them off every single time that I get them done. And I call it the win the day list because this is the definition of a successful day. I mean, I have things like write a note to somebody. I want to write a note to somebody every day. I want to learn in some way every day. So read one chapter in a book or listen to one podcast a day. Want to take care of my skin, do my skin routine twice a day, you know, so, and then there's also business things like, you know, get 5 referrals for business every day, you know, post and plan, really download from the day. So anyways, I am totally not perfect. There's definitely days that I don't hit everything. And I want to be really transparent about that and say that I am such a work in progress and I'm constantly keeping tabs on myself and asking the people in my life to keep me accountable and keep sharpening me and me really, I would say edit the list and make sure that it's still in congruence with my goals, my life mission. I think we also need to give ourselves grace as we grow. We also need to make adjustments with our habits and, you know, our daily practices. So.
I love it. And okay, so we need to have a follow-up conversation because I think I mentioned this to you. My latest project is the Vitruvian letter, which it's my newsletter.
Yes.
I just put out that
super exciting.
A lot of the things that I'm listening to, reading, you know, fitness, nutrition, and the idea behind it being the Vitruvian man being the man that's in perfect proportion, Leonardo da Vinci from Vitruvian, the architect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to build an entire theme around that. And the thing that's kind of a drawback on that is that it's the Vitruvian man, but it's really about my goal is to take the idea of the perfectly proportioned human, you know, mentally, spiritually, physically, and all these things that you and I have been talking about. So I think you and I could work together on creating something around this idea. So I may hit you up because everything you touched on are the things that a lot of folks, like physical fitness, sleeping 7 to 8 hours, a lot of these things that people think that those are luxuries. Like it took me a while to realize that having my physical fitness as a top priority, not just a luxury, that serves everyone around me better, not just myself.
Right.
And, it's the same thing with, you know, Ryan Holiday once mentioned that whenever he was, it was one of his books, I don't remember which one it was, but whenever he was still at American Apparel doing marketing, that he would sit in his office and reading is work, taking the time to feed your mind, both from a meditative standpoint, as well as just, like I always say, that reading is doing push-ups for your brain. I mean, just because you're sitting and reading a book, that does not mean that you're sloughing off. So this whole idea of keeping this most ultimate of machines that is with us at all time, our body and our mind, is of utmost importance. And it's one of the things that I've become a little bit obsessed with, just from the standpoint of, I think the greatest wealth we all possess is that which is within us, you know, both the physical, the spiritual, you know, all of it. And so I don't think it's selfish to focus on that. So that's a long drawn out way of saying everything you just said. Amen, amen, amen. And again, I knew that's the type of answer I would get. I knew you'd crush that. So, and again, it's the reason why you're on the podcast. I think that anyone that has listened to this episode, if you didn't get takeaways from this, then I got nothing for you. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to do, you know.
Let me add one thing too. Probably I'm going to add a question to the lightning round. Biggest thing I'm learning right now. The biggest thing I'm learning is to not be scared of failure and to embrace it. I mean, failing, I learned about this in the second chapter of Just Mercy, so go read it ASAP. But so many times we think about failing as like a scarlet letter or just something that ruins us for life. And my mind is being blown about actually thinking of failure as, you know, medals of honor and badges of courage. I mean, if you let failures, they will make you better. You know, I mean, there's a TED talk about, you know, there's a STEM program for women in STEM. And one of the requirements for getting into the program is having 2 failed businesses under your belt. You have to have failure to actually be good enough to get in the program. I mean, imagine that. And some of the greatest, I mean, one of my favorite entrepreneurs, Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx, right? She failed the LSAT twice. I mean, if you listen, my favorite podcast is How I Built This, and it's just the best. But if you listen to the podcast, if you are a student of any successful person, one of the commonalities between all of them is they all have failed often and they failed big, right? And so I am just now learning that failure is not only just not the end of the world, but it's actually a good thing. And so I just want to be very clear on this podcast that I am so far from perfect, and I have had plenty of failures and struggles in my life, and I know I will continue to. And, you know, I'm just by the grace of God, I am continuing to grow and use those for good in my life. But yeah, don't fear failure, whatever you do, embrace it and fail forward. So
I love it. And Lauren, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. You're just getting warmed up. You're just getting started. And I think in every possible way, you deserve the title of Texas Titan. And I'm so glad you came on the show.
I'm so honored.
And anything I can ever do to return this favor, you let me know.
Well, I was always told to surround myself with people who are better than me, smarter than me, more successful than me. So Jason, you and the rest of the Titans are totally that. So I'm just so honored to learn from and grow with you all and to be a part of this family. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. And everybody, go cast your vote by donating to my LLS Woman of the Year campaign. Do it today. Don't wait. Be a part of something bigger than yourself. LaurenforLLS.org. Thank you so much.
Do it. All right. Thanks a lot.